Morning and welcome to a little video for the Suicide and Spirituality Project. One of the things with social media, and when I was a kid we never had social media. If you wanted to know what was going on, you had to run down to the corner store and buy a paper or wait for the news to come on. And there wasn't much of anything particularly that was social about it. It was just a general bunch of information. But these days people can put their emotions and thoughts and feelings out there onto a platform that everyone can buy into and get engaged in. Facebook and Instagram and all these sorts of things. And I had a young lady this morning, not specifically addressing me, although I did reply, who wrote something along the lines of, I wonder who's going to miss me. I'm at the point in my life where I've had enough. I just want to end my life, blah, blah, blah. And those sorts of posts are quite prevalent, you know, and you come across them all the time on Facebook anyway. And the first thing to realise in that situation is that if they're posting something on Facebook, it's a call for help. People who want to commit suicide actually just go out and commit suicide. So these sorts of posts are reaching out. There's not particularly an immediate danger, and I'm not saying that's a verbatim fact, but just in general terms. So if you do come across these posts, it's always a good idea to get in touch with that person and find out what's going on, etc. But to put it in a spiritual bracket, right, the highest point of association that you could make with one of these posts is, well, this is a reflection of my own mind. These are my own thoughts being reflected back to me. If you have a reaction to it, right? If you have an emotional, heartfelt calling to that post, it's like, wow, I feel like this, or this is something I think about. And if you're honest, you'll realise that you do think about things like that when times get tough. When it's the good times, of course, nobody does. Life's too good. We don't want it to stop. But when everything's piling up behind us and the pressure's on, these sorts of things, you know, the ego takes advantage of these situations and tries to tease you. And your ego is that little voice in your head that is very judgmental and speaks for the reality of the physical world rather than eternity, which is the truth of what reality is. So just to put it in a nutshell, because in replying to that girl's post, I'm only typed with one finger on my phone, and it takes a while to do these things, so I thought I'll just make another little video. But the nuts and bolts of suicide is very simple. Right? If you take your life, which you can never do because you're eternal, you're a spirit, but if you try to destroy your vessel, your avatar, the vehicle for your experience here, all that happens is you end up at the back of a very long queue in one of the Bardo states. Now, Bardo states, there are various states beyond the physical realm, and if you want to call them way stations, or they're like train platforms. And you can be waiting for a train for a very long time there, and you'll have to answer a lot of questions and go through a lot of customs. So that's the only way I can put it. And 99.9% of the time you'll find yourself right back here being reborn again in the physical plane, because you're here for a purpose. You came here to experience separation from God, from Source, from Universal Mind, and the experience of being separate from unconditional love is chaos, right? Which is why the world you see around you is so fucked up, or seems to be so fucked up. But it's not really, because it's exactly what it's meant to be, right? The world is an experience of chaos, an experience of separation, an experience of pain, suffering, and death. But you can never suffer, you can never die, because you are spirit. But you can confuse yourself with things that do, i.e. the body, right? And pain seems very real, and death seems very horrific, and all these sorts of things. So remembering that you're using free will, you're using the power of the mind of God to have this experience and project out there a world that you think is happening, whilst in actuality you are in eternity dreaming the whole thing, much like in the Matrix, where he's in that red jelly, and except there's no science fiction, it's just what it is. It's hard to understand, it's hard to put your finger on and go, oh yeah, I get that, without actually having an experience, which is what enlightenment is, or salvation is. And you can have that experience for yourself through the purification of the mind, through prayer and meditation, which bring about shifts in your consciousness, so that you can have a spiritual experience that will give you a new point of focus in your own thinking, for the decisions that you make in your life from that point on, or even before that point, just through the conceptual use of the philosophy. From that point on, to affect a different result in your life, i.e. learning the lessons. Okay? So the world is a classroom. The world is a place where we come to experience separation from source, God, whatever, and then all of a sudden, bam-o, you get to middle age, 30 years of age, or 40 or whatever, and you just go, man, I'm so done with this. Or maybe you're done with it as a teenager. When I was a teenager, I looked at the world and I thought, you adults are all fucked up. What the hell's going on? I didn't want any part of that kind of world. But the realization, firstly, that this is an experience of separation. It's not reality, but it seems very real. I can experience this as, this wire or this decking or whatever. It feels real, right? Our senses and our thoughts about what our senses relate to us seems to be exactly what we think it is, right? But we experience this as reality because we have no other focal point in our mind to tell us what reality really is. So this is reality, but compared to what? All right. So learning the lessons that are presented, right? The lessons show up in relationships. My relationship with the world, the universe, my relationship with other people, animals, plants, the ocean, the environment, science. Everything here is a relationship. It's a symbolic representation of my relationship with God, with the universe, with source. All right. What I see out there tells me that I'm either at peace in here, or it's calling me to be at peace. It's either love or a call for love. If you're in the experience of separation still and you haven't started your spiritual journey, it's going to be a call for love, right? Because God calls to you all the time. There is always, and there is never, a moment throughout the day wherein you are not called upon to forgive yourself for your judgments of the external world, for your expectations and dreams and hopes of making this reality, so that you can awaken in eternity and have that experience of remembering who you are, where you are forever, and what life really is. And it's not this. It appears to be this. This is not, like death is not the opposite of life. It's another form of life, but it's not what life really is. It's not what eternity is. It's not what you are as the eternal spirit, the extension or the creative progeny of God. That's a mouthful. So suicide is pointless. You just reincarnate back again, here, again and again and again. And until you've completed the lesson, until you've awoken from the dream, until you've had that experience, until you know who you are, where you are, what you are forever. All right, so hello, puppy. And yes, thanks for joining me. So rather than getting frustrated and upset, well, then off you go. Frustrated and upset with the world you see around you, and wanting to take revenge on everything, and wanting to hold a grievance, and wanting to be upset and all of these things. Remember, you came here to experience that. You're getting the results of that thinking. You're getting the results of that choice. And in that sense, you are doing this to yourself, right? Which is going to be an affront. It's like, no, I'm not. Somebody did something to me. It's like, who chose to come to the physical world, right? If you're a gladiator, let's say, back in the old days of Rome, and you go and you sign up to become a gladiator. I'm going to be a gladiator. I'm going to win lots of money, and I'm going to be the best gladiator in the world. You don't know what's going to happen when you walk into that arena. They're going to let some other gladiator out that you have a chance of beating, or they're going to let out a dozen lions that are just going to rip you to bits, right? The world is no different. You're here in an experience of separation from God. Anything can happen. The world is a place of potential, right? Sit down there. The world is a place of potential where anything can happen. You know, all those people on the Titanic thought they were off to America. You know, Mr. and Mrs. Adolf Hitler probably loved their little boy growing up, thought he was going to be a wonderful child and maybe a scientist or something. Like, you cannot predict what's going to happen. You do not know your own path. You can only meet the situations, events and relationships that show up for you on your path with one of two perspectives. Right? A perspective of altruism, which is where you see everything that shows up for you as an opportunity to learn, an opportunity to heal, or from a perspective of being separate from that person, situation or event, wherein you're going to react to it and you're going to be frustrated and you're going to have more chaos and you're going to perpetuate it because the universe gives you more lessons of the kind that you want. And as you react and respond to those sorts of things, your own mind manifests more. It's like, oh, look, you got really angry at that situation. Let's make some more situations you get really angry at, because your mind's assuming you want to be angry. It's the law of attraction, and that is a true law. People who dispute it, I mean, just put it to the test. It's very, very simple to test. And you'll notice it very easily if you watch your thinking, and if you watch the situations that show up for you, you'll notice they come around and around. Same shit, different day. Same shit, different day. Right? Forgiveness. Forgiveness is where it stops. Right? I'm willing to forgive myself for asking that person to play that part for me. And when the next time that person comes to me and plays that part and it starts to push my buttons, I'm going to step back. I'm going to ask within myself, ask the Holy Spirit, ask my inner guide, my higher guide, what should I say? I'm not just going to flip off the handle and say the same thing that I always say or react the same way I always react, because it just perpetuates the same shit again. Right, and I saw a beautiful demonstration of that on, I think it was a TED Talk. Someone was doing something on bullying, and they invited an audience member out to stand and try to bully him. And he played the part of someone who buys into the bullying and keeps reacting back and back and back. And then he asked, which demonstrated that you know, that response, that reaction doesn't work in negating the effects of the bullying. And then he asked that person again, all right, now bully me again. And the second time he didn't defend himself. He agreed with everything the bully said, and the bully had nowhere to go with it. Right? It's like, yeah, I am hopeless. Yeah, I am useless. Whatever. You know, you're right. I don't know what I can do about that, but you're right. You know. And then he complimented the person. Your hair looks nice today. Well, it's like it's about how you use your mind. Right? It's about what's going on in here. The world will always be the world. It's perfect. It's representing separation. It's always going to represent that. But your path is to be in the world, but not of it. Right? Your path is to learn the lessons in the classroom and graduate from here, not to stay in the classroom lifetime after lifetime after lifetime. And spirituality is something that you can very easily apply to the normal everyday situations of your life without having to go to church, without having to make a big hoobie-doo about it, without having to do anything. Right? It's just simply an action of mind. It's a choice you make in every situation. And you've trained your mind badly to react and to respond to things in a way where you believe you're separate from everything. But if we are all one, if everything is one thing, if we are all God, which is everything, and we're all an equal part of that, then there is another way to respond to things as if you are an equal and whole part of that. As above, so below. In eternity, we are all one. On earth, we are all one, but we just appear to be separate beings and entities walking around. But in actual fact, if I keep my finger on my nose, everywhere I go, I am the dreamer of my dream. I am responsible for what shows up for me, and I am the one who chooses how I respond to it, how I react to it. And I get the result that I choose. Love or fear. If it's not love, it's a call for love. Right? And you have to be honest about what you see. What do I see out there in the world? Why does this keep pushing my buttons? Give it a name if that helps, right? Look at it as a mirror. The world is a mirror reflecting back to me the thoughts about myself that I believe I'm either a body or spirit. I can't be both. Hey, buddy, what are you doing there? I can't be both, and as I learn to true up to the choice that I'm making for my identity or my self-identity as that of being spirit, I begin to let go automatically of the one where I believe that I'm this body, which is going to get old and sick and die, right? I'm not a body, you're not a body. We are spirit on a journey of the soul, and the third dimension is just a very simple and transient part of that, where we are in the experience of forgetting that we are spirit, whole and perfect as God created us, unable to be sin, unable to be corrupted, because what God creates is perfect and there is no opposite to God, right? But we are in that experience of believing that that can be so, right? And when you begin to true up to your new premise that I am spirit, even if you haven't experienced it yet, and live your life from spirit, you'll realize that there is a kind of a flow, that there is a kind of a living, energetic force to all things in the world. And I like the idea of it being called the Force because I'm a Star Wars fan, Yoda. And you'll begin to enjoy it, right? Take a leap of faith. Make bold experiments with your spirituality. You've got nothing to lose. You were only going to go and pick out a casket at the end of the day anyway. You're only going to go and hang that rope from that tree and put it around your neck anyway. Right? I'm telling you, it's pointless. You'll end up in a giant waiting room with very boring music playing and a bunch of people who come around with clipboards. It's not exactly like that. And decide what happens to you next. It's like being a Centrelink for 100,000 years, and then you get to be reborn back here and do the whole thing again. And if you think I'm kidding about that, if you think I'm just making shit up, you tell me what it's about. All right, I love you. And do some research. Look into it, okay? And practice prayer in all your affairs, meditation, still the mind, live in the moment here and now. Don't worry about yesterday. Don't worry about tomorrow. This moment is the gift. Unwrap it like a present, because it is the present. This is the only moment you're alive. Bye.